Midday snack, midday snack, midday snack. See, I'm just snacking today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Before we get into episode 3, as always, if you're going through a mental health issue or really any issue, dial 988. Close this, I'm not that important, and dial 988, which is the United States. So if you're not in the U.S., I don't think 988 would work, because I did find out like 5.1% of my viewership is outside the U.S. Let's up that a little bit. I know some of you foreigners are interested in U.S. presidential politics because so much of it must be hysterical to an outsider. When you're in it, it's really scary, though. We're continuing discussion on how to talk about the election and how to get people to vote for Kamala Harris. Again, do not forget the goal: to get somebody who is not 100% behind Harris to become 100% behind Harris. That's it. Our goals here is not to make new friends. It's not to bolster our reputation in the community. It's doing something totally selfless. Saving democracy. And I think it's kind of an important one. Because Orange Walnut wins. And I used to hate people who would say this. I don't know if there's going to be another presidential election. And you can find videos of me mocking that phrase. But the more unhinged he gets, and the more loyal his people get to an unhinged animal, if we as America give that our blessing, I don't even want to predict what would happen in the second Trump term. All I can predict with extreme confidence is it's not going to be good, and it's going to hurt and kill a lot of people. And that's really what we're here for. Even when we're not doing politics, we're talking about dumb stuff like the rating, like the 40th birthday of the PG-13 rating. It's down there somewhere. Watch it. Like, if anything, this is supposed to be informative. Okay? If I fail at convincing you, the viewer, to vote for Kamala, that's not my exact purpose right now. My exact purpose is to put these ideas into the universe and have you relay them to your social base in a way that I can't, because it's not my social base. Thus, I don't know the intricacies of the individuals. You know your friends the best. You know your friends better than their parents do. Let's use that to help save democracy. Now, first thing I want to say is no more fear. There's one thing that I used to be very scared of during campaigns, and I had to stop being scared of it. And that is constructively criticizing my side. Because if I sit there and say, no, my side was right on this, my side was right on this, we did this right. Did you do anything wrong? I don't think of anything. I think we're actually perfect. That it's so insincere. It's so unbelievable. Every successful individual painstakingly is trying to make their product better. So if you ever reach a point where you think you've reached perfection, please reach out to me. so we can find where the holes you maybe aren't catching are. Because I've been catching holes in my arguments during the experience of making this. I still have so much to learn, and so do you. But don't hide behind that. If there's something the Biden Harris administration is doing that you respectfully disagree with, you're allowed to talk about that. It humanizes you. As opposed to, it was a perfect phone call. My Trump impression's awful. Everything I did was perfect. I can do no wrong. Like, as President Obama said, that shtick's old. I think I gave that shtick up at like 15, the whole I'm always right thing. Although I was always right when I was 15, I got straight A's that year. I kid and I digress. Well, I don't kid, I did actually get those straight A's. But humanize yourself. Don't try to make yourself into an analytical robot who has to be right about every single thing. Because once you lose the feel, the emotion, that's a lot of the battle. So, a lot of talking politics is just figuring out where that line is and trying to bring that person past it slightly with you, because it's going to be nearby impossible to drag them with you. So all you need to do is tip them slightly on your side, believe they're convinced, because you'll never know if they really did or didn't. Keep it moving. Next person. That's the purpose here. Now, once this is over, I'm going to do some, if people want, discussions on more aggressive debate styles. But now is not the time for you and your friends to be yelling at each other over politics. It's time for you to prove that the Harris Waltz ticket is light years more mature than Trump Vance. I was debating not saying Vance and trying to find like a funny reason. Didn't hit. Oh well. So I'd like to give you all something. If any of my viewers ever plan on running for vice president and then president, I'd like to give you this ticket. If you're actually looking for something, it's only air. It's a symbolic ticket. You get one time and one issue on the campaign to completely remove yourself from an administration you belong to. But you only get to do it on one issue. We got like 60 somewhat days left. Like this, Kamala hasn't used her issue yet. So she gets to completely distance herself from Biden, but she can only do it on one issue. If you do it on more than one, that creates the reputation that you're not a team player, that you don't work well with people, that, well, if you're not doing it my way, we're not going to do it at all. Screw you, I'm going home. But one time is fine. And in 2020, Joe Biden decided to separate himself from Obama on the issue of immigration, when he said, yeah, that law might have been a little too tight. One line. And that's all he was allowed. I don't know if he said it on the campaign stump, because I wasn't on the campaign stump with him. But he was allowed to put that in the universe. And you can make the same point again, you just can't now distance yourself from your own administration on an issue like abortion or something. Like you're tied to them, except on that one. Obama didn't choose anything. Biden chose immigration. Harris has not made her choice yet. So I made it for her. Vice President Harris would be best served by distancing herself from the Biden-Harris administration on the conflict in Gaza. A few reasons. First, if you plan on running for president, that sounded like I was starting a commercial. Now, I don't have sponsors, but if you're going to run for president, you would like there to be a warmth between you and your running mate. And that's a warmth I've always felt between Kamala and Joe. It's a little cool at this very second, but you could tell they are warm towards each other. Their families are warm towards each other. Something you never saw with Trump-Pence, and I do not think you'll be seeing with Vance. You saw this with... You actually saw this with Obama and Biden. I know a lot of people say they hate each other now. I haven't read any source that I would quote I haven't read any source qualified enough to make a statement like that, so I'm not going to make it. Other than it's out in the universe. But Biden chose immigration. Why immigration was Obama's least popular issue. He was called the deporter-in-chief when he left office. He deported more than, as it stands today, Biden and Trump combined. Well, Biden wanted to be the open immigration candidate. You had to divorce yourself. On everything else, he was with the Obama administration. They could talk at the same time, it would be the same words. And not one person, and I watch a lot of news, said he was being disloyal to Obama, not taking responsibility. They thought it was a good explanation. Here, you're going to do it on Gaza. I'm going to start off by saying what's going on in the Middle East is absolutely disgusting. On October 7th, an insurgent of Palestinians attacked Israeli citizens. Since then, Israel has returned fire with what most professionals deem a non-proportional attack. I don't have all the numbers, but I know it's like something like 50 times more people they've killed. But Israel's supposed to be our ally. But the line, Israel's allowed to protect itself, it's getting old. And people are becoming sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. I'm not here to talk about that issue. I'm only here to talk about it, how it affects the presidential election. I'll do a whole Gaza thing after the election. But Joe Biden's a war hawk. Because he's old. You got John McCain on his shoulder right here. You got John Bolton right here. Like, Kamala Harris may not be a war hawk. Undecided. TBD. But at least she can say, and I'm going to give her a quote she gave because it's perfect. And I'll tell you why it was perfect when I'm done. She said, "The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for a second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not remain silent. Those are strong words that, if you parse them, mean absolutely nothing. And that's what a good politician can do well. Talk your ear off and not say anything and do it sounding good. And she did it with that quote. She gave no policy information there. She didn't say how she would do it. She didn't even say how she would differ from the Biden administration. But she sounded amazing saying nothing. Is that how I would like politics to work? No, but we have to be realistic. And I really hope the situation, the genocide going on in Gaza on a personal note can end soon. I am a Reform atheist Jewish American, and I lose sleep at night of what's happening to the innocent Palestinians. And by innocent Palestinians, I don't mean everyone's innocent. I mean what's happening to people who are in fact innocent. Children, mainly. Because I am a recipient of testicular affirmative action. Basically, born rich. Not on Donald Trump levels, though. All I know is in a different world, I could be there. I don't know how. I lose sleep over it. Okay. So that's how you handle Gaza. You say as little as possible in as many words as possible. A few key words you want to throw in there. Two-state solution. International Criminal Court. Benjamin Netanyahu. Just a few things to be part so you sound educated when you speak. And then throw a little bit to Israel, because their lobbies are funding your PACs. And even if that's just one, Israel has a right to defend itself. Because your audience, when you're saying that sentence, is Benjamin Netanyahu. Only for one sentence. For every other sentence, it's the American people. But Netanyahu gets one sentence devoted towards him. I can't stand that man. I think he should be tried for war crimes. But we have to live in the reality we do. And if you're talking about the necessity of increased conflict, which I really hope there isn't, that gives you the opportunity it does give you an opportunity to slide into something popular. And that popular thing is called one of my deceased mentors, John McCain. Say what you will about John McCain. A lot of people think he was a war hawk. He was. Never saw a war he didn't like. People were treated unfairly. He didn't like it. Either way, if you're in the right part of the country, and only you know this, obviously, the only one I can answer is all of Arizona. Yes, this applies to. I don't know how this would go over elsewhere. You know your location better than I do. But you bring the Biden flavor along. You bring the McCain flavor along with you. Because where McCain is adored, which is not everywhere, he is a god. And if you can tie your policies to him and maybe have ready Trump making fun of him, not calling him, saying he's not a war hero, It's like putty in your hands at this point. Because if you're in that part of the world, chances are they have a view of John McCain that's warm like mine. But you have to make sure you're in the right place. And I can't tell you where the right place is. Other than if you're in all of Arizona, go ahead. Outside of Arizona, leave a message. And, I'll look at the socioeconomic factors in your community and see if utilizing John McCain, which is not a dirty thing to do, being John McCain asked Joe Biden and Barack Obama to speak at his funeral. He loved thought. And what this is an exercise in thought. He loved thought more than war. Yeah, he liked war. But he liked thought. Okay? And then you can talk about Trump's bone spurs. And then, for some reason, he always takes the bone spur thing and brings up his brother, Fred Jr. And this really upsets me. Because Fred Jr. was the one who was supposed to take over the Trump empire. But he didn't want to. He wanted to be a pilot. And he got his pilot's license. And he didn't talk to anyone in the family. But I'm sure you've heard of Mary Trump, who's, writing books and gives interviews. That's his daughter. Fred Trump was so depressed, and I can only go by what his family members say, due to his family, that he thought having a seizure while withdrawing from alcohol into a death was preferable to having the last name Trump. Donald didn't even go to his funeral. He called him weak. He said the typical nasty Trump stuff about his dead brother, his child niece's father, his in-law. That's the type of person we're dealing with here. I hope you realize. Another thing about Trump, which you should really hammer home, is he's not a smart man. And he's been given way too much credit, and my opinion has only changed on this in a week. And it was during the convention when President Obama was speaking, and all he said was one sentence, and Trump made sense to me. After 9 years of him not, he made sense to me. I'm sure you're curious what that sentence was. Donald Trump, I don't even have a good Obama, only does things if they benefit. It's not like Bill Clinton. Donald Trump only does things if they benefit him. And him is very specific. The individual Donald John Trump. Not it'll be good for the Trump administration. Not it'll be good for Mar-a-Lago. Not it'll be good for the country he's the president of. How will it benefit him personally? How will his quality of life increase if he makes a certain decision? I almost guarantee you, if let's say I was cleaning, so this is a pretty big hypothetical as is, and I happened to pull out a golden mop, and real gold, I'm not trying to get over, pure gold, maybe even a platinum lining, but it's a mop. Its job is to mop up the floor. Trump would want it, though. He would want the golden mop. Now, let's say its net value is $500. I bet you he would consider going up to $1 million because he wants a toy which will benefit him. Why was he pro-choice all these years and suddenly he's pro-life? Ever find that curious? Because when he was pro-choice, being pro-choice benefited him. Being I don't think he's getting much action these days, the pro-life philosophy he thinks will help his campaign more, so he's embraced it because it benefits him. Ask anyone who's had dinner with him. He orders for the whole table because he knows better what you should eat. He's such a simplistic individual. If he wasn't such a nasty son of a, I might actually feel bad. I don't, though. But it's every decision he makes starts and stops with how will it affect Donald John Trump, the individual. Not President Trump, not the Trump administration, Donnie from Queens. And if you can answer that question to your own satisfaction, that's what Trump is going to do. 99 out of 100 times since I heard that, my predictions on Trump's actions have been correct. Last one I was wrong was I didn't think he was going to... Actually, no, that was I don't know. That's not to brag, though, because I don't really try to predict Trump that much, so it's not really much of a flex to say, hey, I can figure out what this crazy man is thinking. But you have to get into the other side's mind. An exercise I always do professionally is once I get a conflict, only in my brain, maybe if I have somebody next to me, I'll just shoot off an idea. But I'll pretend I'm on the other side. It doesn't make sense. Have they thrown me a softball or an impossible curveball? Most of the time, it's neither. And let me tell non-speech debaters a little secret that they don't want to get out. It's so much more about how you say it than what you're saying. And that's not how it should be. Content should far outweigh quality. Not in this era, it doesn't. I wish it did. I'm smart. Maybe beautiful at times, but this is what keeps the Ian factory a-moving, is the brain, not the face and the bod. So I was born in the wrong generation. I don't like it either. But I have to live in the reality I'm in. And also, this will give Harris, when she makes this speech, the opportunity to just say more nice things about Joe Biden. And that's something everyone should be doing, is saying, thank you, Joe Biden. Because so much goes on in our lives. Sometimes something really monumental happens and we don't catch the value of it. Donald Trump, who lost in 2020, called his supporters down to try to overthrow the election with fake electors and bring a noose to either mock or really, because I don't know, I wasn't one of them, hang his vice president. That sounds pretty disgusting. Why? Because it is. In contrast, Joe Biden is voluntarily relinquishing power for the betterment of the country. History will be very good to Joe Biden, because Joe Biden's a good man. You know how you see that clip all the time of John McCain taking the microphone out of the lady's hand who was about to just say nasty, untrue things about Obama, and said, no, man, he's a good man. We just don't agree on certain things. We need to get back to that. So more viral moments of mutual respect of adversaries, even if we're our own adversaries, will help just the tenor of the country. Just saying. Don't be nasty to people. Next is just a little secret you have in the hole to talk about. It's casual, it's unimportant, and that's my boy Doug. Doug Emhoff. He's going to be the first gentleman, which was a job I was really hoping for because it seems so amazing. You get to live in the White House and get all the luxuries of the president without the stress. Sign me up. But they have a very good family story for 2024. She met him. He had 2 children from a previous marriage. The children embraced her, and she embraced them. Doesn't always happen with stepchildren. But she doesn't even consider them stepchildren. They call her Kamala, which is adorable. You'll always get your haters saying, oh, that's cheesy. That will gain more votes than it'll lose. Of course, figure out who you're talking to. If you're talking to the Harley Davidson crew, they're not interested in Kamala. They're interested in the economy, which you can go back to yesterday to see how a vote for Trump is a vote against your economic interests. But just talk about Doug, and then that could lead you into talking about Tim. And Tim Walz, Governor Walz, gave his speech at the convention, and all people can do is talk about how beautiful that moment was when his son, who has developmental disabilities, stood up crying hysterically in pride and said, "That's my dad." You can't script that moment. It was real. It was unplanned. And it was one of those moments that'll go down in history. I guarantee you no Trump kid has ever stared at Donald with tears running down their eyes and pride. Maybe fake tears to try to get money. But even I did that back in the day. But then, listen to me, Kamala, if you're watching this. You finish the debate, and hopefully you go second, with one sentence. And then debate over. Do not let there be follow-up, because the election's not over. You have to have, for you, the person you're conversing with, want more information on something you just said, forcing them to come back to the table, which will give you more time to open up something. So you have to spur their interest without details. It's not easy. This would be like advanced right here. But she should finish her debate with something no one's expecting and say, and ladies and gentlemen, enough is enough. In my first 100 days as your president, I commit to the full legalization, not decriminalization. Most people won't know the difference, but they'll look it up because they'll be curious. And while they're looking it up, they're thinking about the Kamala campaign. Free time. In my first 100 days, I will legalize, not just decriminalize, marijuana for recreational purposes. We're actually working on the bill right now. Over. Debate done. Do not, because they're going to want to know, oh, really, how long have you been talking about this? These are all things you'll answer as time goes on. But you want a campaign winner? The federal legalization of marijuana is it. Trump's not going to be the pot candidate. It's just not. It's not going to happen. He has too many lobbies, pharmaceutical lobbies, saying clamp down on the weed harvest. But Kamala doesn't really take a lot of money from those lobbies. Unfortunately, part of life is money does exist in politics. I'd love for it to get out. Again, live in the reality you're in. Fight the fight you're fighting now. Don't fight a fight you should be fighting in 6 months. Okay? Fight the time appropriate fight. Like, I have many Muslim friends, and I am historically Jewish, and it's not, and none of us have either said, remember what happened 1,000 years ago between our people, and then we hated each other. It just hasn't happened yet. Maybe it'll happen someday, but marijuana is a winning issue. And you know Trump's not going to make it his issue because he's had 9 years to do so and hasn't. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with one thing. You will get the whole, why hasn't she debated yet? What's she hiding from? There's an easy retort to this one. You say, this campaign is historic. She became the nominee and then had to have the convention less than 4 weeks later. What we see at the convention is maybe 20% of it, but they need to write the party platform with her as the leader because they've written one with Biden as the leader. Situation has changed. She doesn't want to inadvertently present something in a way that's not in coordination with her policies. And Rome wasn't built in a day, so just give her another few days to iron out some of her policies. And of course she's gonna be giving interviews left and right. That's your answer. It makes sense. It says we get it. Because honestly, she should be giving interviews. It's been long enough, you know. I told myself 28 days I think is a good amount of time. It's been longer than that. So it is time and it has to happen. Or else her numbers will start leveling down. We don't want that. But until then, it's just stopgap filler. It's pretty easy. And you're going to have that when they're excited about pot anyway. They may even be stoned. So, just to wrap up. Oh, I forgot one thing. Know who you're talking to. And by know, I mean try to get a feeling of their political preference. Are you talking to a passionate Kamala voter? That's going to change what you could say to like a Republican who you're trying to convince. Because a lot of Republicans feel homeless right now. I campaigned, I go off track a little here, for a Republican candidate for district attorney in a county in Pennsylvania, although she was running against the incumbent Republican who she beat in the primary, but there was no one on the Democratic ticket, so he just jumped on there. But my 4 months of my life was everything Republican. So I felt I understood and I could give this presentation from the Republican perspective. I couldn't do that today. I don't know what the hell that organization is. But part of what conventions became after they just became entertainment was you show continuity of government. Ford, Reagan, Bush. Reagan, Bush was lost. Bush comes back, and then W. Bush after 8 years of Clinton. It shows continuity of party, which is how you prove policies work regardless of the individuals, because you're showing different generations. GOP can't do that, because the old Republican organization is dead. The Democratic organization had that passing of the torch moment. And just describe it. It was one of those weird cases where the presidents flip-flopped a little in order. Usually it's chronological, but that's fine. Where you pretty much had Obama handing off the mantle. Joe always said, I'm a transition president. Now, I have an issue with CNN, by the way, and all of mainstream media, who has interpreted that as he promised to serve one term. I listen for that all the time. He never said it. He did not meet a campaign promise by dropping out of this election. He embedded a 50-year career of patriotism and love and caring about you. And you know who else cares about you? Me. Damn it. 42 minutes. I care about you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.